This is me again, the owner and founder of Your Nanny Resume. I am a certified resume writer and a career coach as well. Um, how I got in this industry was being a former child care provider for actually a little bit over 10 years. I still kind of dip my toes into the industry sometimes, depending on if a family needs something or a family that I've worked with before needs something, just kind of where I am in my career. Still something that I can't get too far away from. But I was a nanny who full-time nanny, that was pretty much my role. And I was somebody who was taken advantage of, underpaid, overworked, all of the above. And I knew at that time that if I was going through that, then other childcare providers were going through the same thing. So me being a very solution-based person, I knew that it was something I wanted to change and shift. And I didn't want to go the agency route, which is what I first thought I did. So resumes have been something that I've been doing forever, just something that kind of came second nature to me. Writing, things like that, I've always been really good at. So a lot of people would come to me and ask, "Hey, can you help me find a job? Can you help me with this?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I realized that I really enjoyed it. So this is actually something that I was called to do. So that is how I got here. I didn't want to just stop at resumes. I feel like you can write a resume and send somebody out the door, but they do need some sort of skill in order for them to thrive in the field. So that is where all of this wealth of knowledge comes from. So today we are going to be talking about five topics in particular, kind of spread out amongst, I believe it's like 12 or 13 slides. So the current hiring challenge for agencies, resume structure and ATS systems, improving application quality, applicant feedback, and candidate development, and then lastly, the long-term impact on agency efficiency. So to jump right in, so the problems agencies actually face. So agencies are not lacking applicants, right? They are lacking system-ready candidates. So you have a high volume of applications, but you're then spending a lot of time fixing the resumes that were sent through those applications, which then in turn gives you a slower screening process, which then may allow you to miss qualified candidates. So I have here most agencies are not struggling to attract candidates. The real challenge is sorting through applications that are unclear, inconsistent, or difficult for systems to read. So one thing that I hear from a lot of the agencies that I've worked alongside throughout my career is the resume. They're so tired of seeing how crappy, for lack of a better word, the resumes look. They are qualified candidates, but they just don't have the resume together. And what I always teach people is if you are not someone who was taught to convey your superpowers onto paper, you're not just going to naturally be able to do that. You could be the greatest writer in the world. I have college grads that specialized in English lit and different things, but it's different when it comes to sitting down and seeing, hey, this is what I've achieved in this industry. Let me put it on paper. What ends up happening is it's almost like job application fatigue is what I'd like to call it, where they feel like, okay, so there's it's kind of two things. There's the one side where it's like I've been applying forever and I just feel like nothing is sticking. Nobody's calling me back. I'm not getting any jobs. So let me just put everything on paper. And then there's the other side where they just don't know any better. So they just feel like they have to put everything on paper because, well, I've done all of this, so why not put it on paper? Which then in turn is what you're getting. You're getting those candidates that they don't know what they don't know, right? There's people like me who are certified in this. This is what I study every day. So you're getting all of these applicants, and they're actually not even bad applicants, to be quite honest. I mean, I'm sure you have your pool of less than applicants. However, they're not really bad applicants, but the resume is terrible, right? And then I don't necessarily know how you all have it set up, but I know ATS is a heavy part of a lot of agencies. So if ATS isn't pushing the resume through, then that's another hindrance for the childcare provider. But let's just say ATS misses all of those things and it still pushes it through. You're now still looking at the application and you're like, oh, we can't do this. And it's really just because they being applicants, don't have the proper knowledge to put what you guys are looking for on paper, and that's why people like me exist. But that is where agencies can come into play and say, hey, this is what we're looking for. A lot of agencies do provide actual resume templates, which I think is amazing. However, some of those templates still require too much information. There's a lot of agencies that I've seen that ask for reasons for leaving on your resume. What that does is it makes it seem like the applicant doesn't have their scarcity in the job search. Their scarcity with job stability, rather. So that's more so a conversation for an interview. That's something that for me, outside of this, I'm in marketing, and people will ask me, hey, you've been at this position only for a year, or so on and so forth, whatever that is. And what I do is I walk through my experience and I let them know why I left. If that was put on paper, for one, it just takes up valuable space. You can't be afraid of white space when it comes to a resume. It takes up valuable space. It kind of speaks to the negative of the job. There are some people who unfortunately have had to leave jobs or were let go due to unrealistic expectations. It's a real thing, happens all the time. But I do believe that, adding all those extra things is doing more harm than good. So I say all that to say there's a lack of knowledge in the nanny community when it comes to what are we putting on these, resume templates, what am I putting on my resume to begin with. And then I think there's a disconnect between agencies and childcare providers with what exactly are we even looking for so that you can avoid all these things that are bulleted here. Then moving to the next thing where time and money are lost. So small inefficiencies create large operational costs. As a business owner, as somebody who also manages other business in the businesses, excuse me, in the marketing realm, I see it all the time. But to speak to this, manual resume corrections. As somebody who does resumes on a daily basis, it is time consuming. So if you have to go in and tweak these according to whatever it is you're looking for, time is lost. It takes me now, if it's an average resume, about an hour and a half. But if it's somebody who has a dense background, that can take me upwards to 2 to 3 hours, really, because it's just me. I'm writing this stuff myself. I'm looking for things. So just imagine how long it takes you, somebody who doesn't necessarily do resumes, right? Then there's incomplete candidate profiles. Let's just say they don't know what to put somewhere, they don't have that information, and there's not something else that they can plug in there. That's also a hindrance. Back and forth communication. I had to go through that a lot myself in my onboarding process. What I used to do was email people what I needed in regards to their resume, and then they would email me back 1,700 emails with different information that they didn't know what else to provide me. And I was like, well, there's something that I'm doing wrong then, because if I'm asking you for something and you're sending me all of this, there's clearly a disconnect. So I had to streamline the process, and then I came up with a form that they fill out with pertinent information that helps me do my job. And now everything is super easy, right? Then re-reviewing applications. So let's just say again that if there's incomplete stuff from an application, you need them to go back and fill it out again, or you need them to send you something because they're missing a reference or whichever. That takes time away from what you could be doing. So every time an agency has to manually adjust information or ask for clarification, time is lost. Multiply that across dozens of applicants, and the impact becomes significant. So depending on how many applicants you guys get on a monthly basis. And I've worked with, or I'm looking to work with a few other agencies, and I ask them what their load is. And people have told me they get 50 applicants a month, right? But that's still a lot for somebody who's, bootstrapped and doing this all by themselves. Whereas there's other agencies that tell me that they get 300 applicants, depending on where they're located and what jobs they have. So imagine going through all of that by yourself or just with your small team as well. It's something that you shouldn't have to even endure. Next, why current applications work against agencies. So most applications unintentionally create confusion. I'm going to read through this slide and then I'll tell you guys a quick funny story. So unstructured resumes, missing key information, inconsistent formatting, hard to compare candidates, and then even strong candidates can appear weak if their resume does not clearly communicate the right details. I've seen that a million and one times, but as somebody, so I know you guys, are running agencies now. I don't know if you have jobs outside of this, but I'm sure there was a time you applied for a job. As somebody who is, sometimes looking for work outside of what I do, one platform that I cannot stand, and this just speaks to the most applications unintentionally create confusion. Workday. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Workday, but Workday, with all due respect, can go to hell. I have had to use Workday so many times, and what it does is, um, So you know how sometimes you can apply for something and then they keep your resume on file and then you see another job and you can just plug in your resume. No, for Workday, you have to make an account each time and you have to fill out everything. Even though your resume is there with all of the information formatted accordingly, it just makes it harder for you. So if any of your applications are similar to Workday, and again, Workday is something that doesn't parse well either. So it doesn't matter if the information is on your resume, it still wants you to fill out your experience, your education. It wants you to fill out everything and then asks you a bunch of questions on top of that. That right there doesn't only create confusion, but it also creates fatigue. So sometimes it's not necessarily that you're getting bad applicants. These are the people who desperately need a job, but the people who wanted to apply don't care for the application process. And I'm not saying that because in a sense that weans out the people who aren't serious about the process, right? Which is what you want, serious applicants. But sometimes people just don't have the time and they spend money with me or maybe another resume writer or whomever, and they put all this information together. They don't want to go through the whole application again. So thinking about what questions am I asking on this application? Are they redundant? Are they too much? Like even my form that I have people fill out for my resumes, that can be pretty long-winded to somebody who's maybe not serious about their career or somebody who simply doesn't have the time. So they still try to get access to me and send me emails and send me text messages or just hop on the phone with me. And I'm like, no, I need you in my system. I need you to fill this out. So, but I'm asking all of the right questions. Before, maybe a year ago, I was having you send me things that didn't even make sense. I would have you send me a donut if I could, like just things that did that had nothing to do with what, I was looking for. So thinking about that with your applications. So again, and then going back to what I had mentioned about strong candidates can appear weak because they have so much information. That's going back to what I had stated in the beginning. That's the applicant that's like, okay, I have all of this information and I'm just going to send it to you. And that's the beautiful thing about resumes. So in this industry, there is no general rule of thumb. I've talked about this all the time. So what I've done is coming from my training in the, corporate background, I take that with the agencies that I work alongside and just content that I see that they put out, I pull that. And then the families that I've worked for, families that I just connect with, talk to sometimes. I was once a server and I would always like, play with their kids at the table and stuff. And they would talk to me because they were like, oh, you're really good with kids. So that's another thing. So I take all those three. And then I put that into the resumes that I do because I now know what agencies are looking for. So if you're applying for an agency, you're good there. I now know what families are looking for. So if you're freelance and kind of doing it yourself, I now know, what families are looking for. So I have that. It when you give people structure, it allows them to know, okay, cool, this is what she's looking for. So in this industry, what I ask for is the last 10 years of experience. If you go beyond that, for one, it could age you out, and the age bias is unfortunately a real thing. You're going to have a super long resume for no reason, especially let's just say you've been an NCS for that time frame. Those are super short positions and they're okay to be short because that's the standard. But imagine over 10 years or beyond that. That's too much. So giving people structure, which is why these resumes have rules, help. So just thinking about that when it comes to the applications that you're putting together, the templates even that you're putting together, like asking people, and again, have your standards, that's totally fine, but asking people on an application versus asking you on a resume template, the reason you left the job are two completely different things. That should be something on the back end that you have. That should be something that the childcare provider can voice in their own time at an interview and kind of let people know. Instead of putting that on documents and then you're sending it out to families, that's just a lot. So just things to consider why these applications are working against you and how you can make them work for you. Understanding ATS and resume parsing, my favorite thing to talk about. So, ATS, if you're not familiar, which I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar, applicant tracking system. It does the hard work for you, but there's still work to be done after. Technically, just looks for headings, keywords, formatting as well to push it through to say, yes, this is a good applicant, right? Which works really well. So when you are creating, I don't know if anybody in here has their own resume templates or how exactly you guys work through that, but if you do have a resume template, it should just be a boring black and white document from top to bottom. And I can tell you right now, the standard format should be contact information, profession if they need it. Summaries are now optional. However, I've still been using them for my clients. Summaries became optional in 2025, and they're really just there um, to speak to if you're making a pivot in your career. So if you have a full-time nanny who's now looking to be a rotational nanny or an NCS or something, that's going to be your short little summary there. So think of it as a 2 to 3 sentence cover letter. Then you're going to go into skills, then you're going to go into experience, then you'll go into education, volunteer work, hobbies and interests, things like that. So making sure your format is working in your favor. Because when the format works in your favor, when they go and apply on your website, it will parse equally. And it should, because now the questions that you have lined up, their resume is formatted that way. I had a resume audit today, actually at noon, and she did her resume in Canva. And I said, you're going to have to do this all over because your resume is not going to read through ATS. Because again, and if it does, it reads from top to bottom. You have stuff on the left hand side that people aren't going to see. And it's important stuff. She had like her education over there, some certifications, some other stuff. And I was like, this is just not ATS friendly. What people think is a resume is supposed to be this beautiful presentation telling you everything about me. No, it's genuinely a high level document that speaks to achievements. You have to leave something for the interview. I always compare it to dating. You know how they say don't kiss on the first date. You got to leave something for them to look forward to. Same kind of thing. So you don't give them everything, you just give them something. So when you put together a proper ATS friendly resume and they submit it in whatever system it is that you have on the back end, and if some of you use Engine Hire, you have the control to ask these questions to parse well with the template, then you're gold. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, her education section kind of got stuck in the skills. So now everything looks all wonky and you have to fix it on the back end or might need them to resubmit. It's just too much. So if you can create these templates, and I have, templates that can be used if you ever need them or just advising you on what the template should look like, then that's going to work in your favor as well. So again, where parsing breaks down when information is unclear, since systems cannot interpret it. So, common issues like missing ages upon hire. So depending on what template you have, mine, I always ask for ages upon hire. I know that agencies really look for that, so I try to make sure to have it. Unclear job titles. Sometimes people don't even include job titles, and then instead, your job title will be the name of the family or the location or whichever. Just you guys, you've seen it on the back end as well, but just to speak to it again, as long as the template is doing the heavy lifting for you, it'll parse seamlessly. So just making sure that their resumes are up to par. So it's also something that we have to educate our childcare community on too, right? Because there are people, I have a resume that's due tomorrow, and her current format is probably a Canva format. And her information is dense. She is a genius. She has a lot of information, but I'm about to take that graphic design flyer and I'm about to put it into a boring document so that when she applies to one of your agencies, it's just going to parse like that. So what agencies should actually be asking applicants? So better questions create better candidate pools. It just makes life easier for everyone. Ages of children upon hire, length of employment, role responsibilities, certifications and training. When agencies intentionally design application questions, it becomes easy to identify the strongest candidates quickly. Think about it as I use ChatGPT a lot just for a lot of things. And as smart as I may be, I tell Chat to teach everything to me as if I was a fifth grader. And the reason I do that is because it's easy for me to digest. Think of the applicant that comes to you that has no background in childcare, but they have transferable skills, they have a genuine love for children, and common sense. The three things that I personally think you need to thrive in this industry, right? they they're filling out this form or this application that just has a little bit too much, right? That might that might scare them away. They might not know what to provide to you. So giving them like spoon feeding your audience information that they can actually retain really does help. So if you think about the five important things that families ask, right? And this is Also a content idea for anybody who posts on social media in here. The five things that families are constantly looking for from applicants, or the five things that families are constantly asking you guys for when it comes to applicants, however you want to word it. And you come up with those five things. Those are your five important questions right there, right? Or that could be your pre-screening, and then you have a conversation with them. And then after that, now you have their pre-screening done, and then everything else is seamless because again, you have all your processes in place. You made it super easy for them. The minute you create applications or ask the right questions rather that make it easy for your audience to retain, the easier things become for you. And I know sometimes we feel like we're not asking hard questions, but sometimes it is hard. One question that people can't seem to grasp is highlight. This is what I ask. Can you highlight any achievements in your role? And they're like, I can't really think of any. And I'm like, well, have you potty trained someone? Have you worked with children with special needs? Have you ever had to use an EpiPen? Have you traveled with a child and there was some sort of emergency that you handled well? Those are achievements. So it's also teaching people this is what I'm asking you, but this is why I'm asking you. And I love asking these thought-provoking questions, especially to childcare providers, because they're so used to the day-to-day. We come in our hoodies, our leggings, just ready to go attack the day. But there are so many things we do in that day that are life-changing that we don't know how to articulate. So if you're asking them these questions, you're now creating a five-star candidate. So thinking outside the box when you ask those questions also helps the candidate think outside the box, which then turns them into a beast. So you're also helping create, and you can even think about it like you're the first agency to really have poured into that particular applicant to see what they were actually capable of. A lot of people look at childcare as if it's just this role where you come in, you change diapers, you do your thing, and you go home. No, we're literally changing people's lives every day. We are instilling things into our little figures on a daily basis, and that is not something to go unnoticed. So, going back to again, these questions that you guys ask, they can really bring out the best in somebody. And now you have a five-star candidate that you built by yourself. So we already talked through the ideal resume structure, but just to reiterate, we always want clear roles, age of children upon hire. The reason I keep reiterating that is because people don't include it or they tell me the age when they left. And let's just say you're a full-time nanny, me. When I started working with my twin boys, they were like, I don't know, 18 months, and I stopped working with them when they were like 3. There are so many different, or 4, I think. There's so many different stages they go through. So I started off changing your diaper and then I potty trained you. I started off feeding you, little like spoon feeding you solids and now you're eating burgers. Like there's so many different things. So it's really important to have that because there's so much. And that's again, another thought-provoking thing that people aren't even thinking of. They're like, oh yeah, they were newborns and you've worked for them for 5 years now. Do you know how much you've done in that time frame? So including that, consistent dates and locations. People always forget to give me the year, the month and year that they've worked for, a family. So I kind of sometimes have to come up with certain ones that make sense within the resume. That could be a whole thing, but making sure those are consistent and that they make sense as well. Yes, there might be some overlap, but sometimes dates don't even make sense. Clearly listed certifications. What I like to do for my clients is to list them but also list when they expire. So, for example, um, I could always like first aid and CPR. I can always just list first aid and CPR, right? But if I actually list it and tell you when it expires, then okay, cool. In 2028, this is when it expires. So now you can make a mental note as the parent or the agency, whichever. Okay, she needs to, go and get that renewed on this date. It just kind of keeps you up to date with things. So this standard structure will help you review candidates faster and reduces a need for manual adjustments. So if you have all of this, and that's why I have like my form in place and things like that. If you have all of this, it makes everything super easy for you. So agencies can set the standard. So agencies are allowed to define application requirements. The benefits include stronger candidate submissions, faster screening, better matches for families. So I've kind of talked about this through the course of the training, but if you set these clear expectations, it does not limit candidates. It actually improves the overall quality of applicants. You come up with these questions. Whatever you feel like you need. So if you even want to take my formula and say, okay, this is what nannies are telling me. This is what families are telling me. Put that together. Boom. right? You can ask those thought-provoking questions, thinking outside the box. There's some applications that I filled out in marketing, and they'll ask like, does pineapple belong on pizza? And it's more of yes, it's a thought-provoking question. Yes, it's a silly question, but it also can speak to, is this a silly applicant that I have, or is this more of a serious one? There are questions you can ask that you can read people after the fact, which I think are really cool. So there are some questions, for example, on my audit today, I was asking one of, because I had two. So on my first audit, I was asking, okay, what positions are you actually looking for? And they walked me through the positions they're looking for. And I said, okay, well, have you ever, traveled with a family before? Because she was looking for travel nanny positions. And she was like, well, I've done a few, so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay, well, they're not on your resume, but you're looking for travel nanny positions. So the family has to trust you in order to be able to travel with the child. And if you haven't done it before, they might overlook you. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because, again, thought-provoking questions. If if you're applying for something, people in this industry, these applicants, think that they are invincible. I'm a nanny, I can do it. And it's like, no, there's a difference. That's why there's different job titles. Like, can you be a newborn care specialist? Maybe, but that's very different than being just a newborn nanny. Can you be a rotational nanny? Maybe, but that's very different than being a travel nanny. So also whatever positions you have, there should also be different questions for those positions. So just like with me, when it comes down to um, whatever job they're applying for, I tailor the resume to that. In this day and age, a resume needs direction. I can give you a general update, that's fine, but depending on the density of your experience, what that might do is confuse employers. You might not have a clear like vision for where you're going. So if I know like, okay, these are the travel nanny positions, these are the questions for that. Like even in my form that I keep referring to, I have if you have a resume, here's your questions. If you don't have a resume, here's your questions. What that does is it puts you in the right pipeline. So if somebody applies for a travel nanny position, you should have travel nanny questions outside of, have you traveled with a family before? Like, are you familiar with cultural sensitivity? Like that's something that you should be familiar with, right? That might not be something that a travel nanny is thinking of bringing up to you or bringing up to a family, but that's something that's relevant. When you go to a different country, you have to be sensitive to their culture. Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable on planes, whether it's business class or you're just in like the regular seats? That's also relevant because there are some people who believe they should fly first class everywhere. And maybe this position isn't for you. Like there's just certain things that you have to ask. And I'm sure you guys probably have questions for certain positions, and the families also get to ask questions, but this also helps you present them being the families, with the better applicant. So applicant feedback as a strategic advantage. So this is another really big one that I really wanted to talk through today. So feedback strengthens future candidate submissions. It reduces repeat applicant errors. It improves candidate preparation. It builds long-term relationships. So the reason why I say that is as someone who coaches people on their journey to finding their dream role, in addition to having my own job, if I don't get a job, I interview like a beast. That's never been an issue for me. So when people tell me I don't get the job, I'm like, okay, if you liked my resume and I interviewed well, which I know I did, how in the world did I not get the job? Instead of asking it that way, when they email me and they say that they went in another direction or whatever it is, I say, thank you for letting me know. Is there any information that you could provide that I can, apply to future roles? However they want to word it. Because what's happening is you tell these applicants, hey, they went with another candidate, or you're not a good fit for the role, or you're not a good fit for the agency, however it is you say it to them, but they don't know why. And if you know your why, you know how to move. So if I know I'm not a good fit for this agency right now because my resume, I know, oh, let me go hire Briana, or let me go, do my resume myself, and then I can go apply. But give them more than that, right? What on their resume is not working for you? Do you not like the way that they're speaking to their experience? Do you not like the format? If you give them enough, that candidate that you might have turned away is probably one of your strongest candidates. They just, again, don't know how to convey their superpowers onto paper. So if you tell them, this is what I need you to fix, and then come back and apply, the people who really want it are going to do exactly that. Everybody, not everybody. I was going to say everybody's coachable. That's a lie. There's a nice majority of individuals that are coachable. And if you give them the tools and they apply it, that's a beast that you created yourself, and a beast in a good way. So again, something to think about. I don't know if you guys, have the standard email, we decide to go in a different direction. However it works when they apply through the agency or apply through a role, or however your structure is, but it's really important to give them key feedback. And what that does for me, there was a role that I actually just recently applied for, interviewed like a beast, and I just knew I was going to get the job. It was actually with iHeartRadio. I can say that now. And only reason I didn't get it is they were like, we loved her. If we had another role that was more client facing, then, we would have brought her on. So that's not necessarily feedback for me. That means that the role in particular didn't really fit with where I am in my career, right? Or whatever my resume kind of speaks to. What they saw in me doesn't necessarily speak to this. So that's feedback that, hey, this probably wasn't a good fit. But there are other ones where, you know, I didn't get the role because somebody had more experience than me or whichever, and that's fine. But as long as I know, I can then, I'm like, oh, they say that, she had experience in email marketing, but so do I. But I never spoke to that on my email. I mean, on my interview, excuse me, or I never spoke to that on my resume, actually. So let me go ahead and update my resume and then make sure it's something that I speak to moving forward. It gives me constructive criticism to move forward accordingly. So don't just turn away applicants because they don't have what exactly you're looking for right away. Coach them, give them a little bit of something, and then when they come back, they're probably going to be an entirely new nanny. And that might be extra work for you, but I do think that it's worth it. So the long-term impact of all of the things that I listed today, stronger systems create stronger placements, faster screening, higher quality candidates, better family matches, more efficient agency workflows. When applications, resumes, and feedback work together, agencies operate more efficiently and placements improve. Again, the agencies that I have spoken to this year alone have said the same thing. These applicants, their resumes, I don't like, they look crazy. I have to turn away so many people, so on and so forth. There are things that you can put in place to avoid that moving forward. And all of which I listed is a great place to start. Looking at your resume templates, if you even have one. Again, if you don't, that's something I'm happy to help you with. Asking the right questions in your applications, asking thought-provoking questions as well to really get to know a candidate. Sometimes there are people who get roles, especially in this industry, that don't even like kids. They just like the money. They like the fact that they could drive the flashy car, they could drive the Tesla, they pull up to the big fancy house, they get paid, $1,300 every week or whatever it is, and it's under the table, and they just love that. But they don't actually like kids. And you can ask questions to see I don't really think this applicant is the one. So making sure that you have all of these things in place can really, really help you streamline your process. So final thoughts. Strong candidates deserve systems that represent them clearly. Small improvements in structure create major improvements in placement outcomes and just to reinforce that this is a better process for everyone, agencies, families, applicants, all of the above. This absolutely will help you get the job done. So I know that that's around 35-ish minutes. So hopefully there is some time for Q&A. I will stop sharing for a second. The last slide is just my contact information if anybody needs it. But if there are any questions, do let me know. Oh, let me actually stop presenting. There we go.
Hey, Briana, that was wonderful. Thanks for
Thank you.
sharing all of that. Inside the chat, while we hope, if anybody has any questions, now is the time absolutely to ask Briana while she's here. Inside the chat, while Briana was going through everything, as she touched on certain topics, I added in articles uh, for engine hire about things that you talked about. So I added in an article on adding the CV resume parser to your applications if you aren't already using that. So you can do exactly what Brianna's saying of, a candidate comes to your application, they can just add their resume, let it fill out the application for them as much as, is in both things. I added then to an article on how to add rejection questions or make questions reject an applicant. So again, they've put in their CV, it's parsed it based on certain questions. If it's not a good match for your agency, it can just knock them out. I added in job applications that are per job. So, diving a step deeper into all of this, if there's, again, saving your agency time, they can have go straight to that, position and fill out the application for that job. And the last one that I entered in there is also such about AI matching. And so, without removing the humanness to your agency, but definitely making sure that you're as efficient as possible, making sure that the top candidates filter up first, to bubble up first for your team, so you can find the right people in your database already. Um, Stephanie, you're wonderful for saying that Brianna's such an insightful person with her presentation. Uh, does anybody have any questions? And while we field for that, is Brianna, do you have any other like last thoughts, or where should people go to learn more about you and everything you're doing?
Yeah. You can find me at yournannyresume.com. You can email me also. I'll drop my email in the chat. My goal actually this year is to really partner with more agencies, whether that be a training. I've done trainings for a plethora of agencies, whether that be coming in and helping you streamline those processes. Because although, yes, you have the business aspect down, the screening process when it comes to a resume from a resume writer's perspective is super fast. I do audits and I don't look at their resume until I'm on the phone with them and I can give them pointers right away. So, I can definitely support you in those efforts. I've, created actual templates before. I've created, application questions, things of that nature. So I'm not just writing resumes. There's a bunch of other things that I've learned along the way. So would love to, support any of you in here, or if you know anyone that you think could benefit from this, because that is again one of my main goals for the year. Really, just because working with these applicants has taught me so much. And I feel like they would really benefit from a liaison that knows, okay, this is what this agency is talking about. People come to me and I'm like a therapist almost. They'll come to me and tell me, oh, I've applied to X amount of agencies and this is what they said and I haven't heard back and da 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 and all of this. So being that liaison makes sense because I have agencies who come to me for, resume help, and then I also have applicants who are always coming to me for resume stuff. So feel free to reach out. I dropped my email in the chat there. And then also yournannyresume.com is my website if you want to check it out. And it's also Your Nanny Resume across the board for socials as well.
Brianna, Sandra, dropped in a question in the chat if you'd like to
Yes.
read it and give it a swing.
Oh, right here. The biggest complaint we get from candidates is that they have input their information twice. We have them do this because often the resumes don't have the information we need, such as location, reference, contact. Yeah, see that. We tell them they can copy and paste the job responsibilities to speed it up, but they often have issues. Oh, on their mobile. Do you have any suggestions on how to make this process more efficient without having them? Hmm. So, to be quite honest with you, it's tough because if you are applying on your phone for one, that's like the easiest way to apply. Oh, no worries. Um, that's the easiest way to apply. So, I don't know how your system is necessarily set up. I know you said they can let you have them put in their information twice. If you maybe did, this might be what you're already doing, but if you maybe did a form and then had them upload their resume at still, but you can still ask them questions that are like by like tricking them, if that makes sense. So instead of asking them for their experience, you can ask them like in a different way to give you certain things. And that might help. I'd have to think on that one just because I do know a lot of people do apply on their phone. I'm always applying on my computer for simplicity. So, but I know not everybody has a computer or, even has the time to necessarily do that. But I can definitely think of some stuff if you shoot me an email because I know there's a way. I just have to think about that for a sec. Perfect. Oh, the
Just
Washburn Agency. I think I follow you on Instagram as well.
everyone, yeah, so amazing. Yeah, you guys make me laugh. Yeah. Well, does anybody have any last questions for Brianna, and then we'll let her go. And I will make this into a recording that everyone can view. I'll send out the email so everyone can get more information about Brianna and rewatch the recording. At your leisure.
Yes, thank you again, everybody, for being here. I had a blast. And again, if questions do come up, feel free to email me. I am at your disposal. This is what I love to do. So feel free to reach out.
Well, everybody, thanks so much, Brianna. One more time, thank you so much for joining us. I
You're,
appreciate it
you're
so
very
much,
welcome.
and we will see. Hope to talk to all of you next time. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.